Hi, I'm Zak Dale Clutterbuck, that's my real name, and the producer for Warhammer 40,000 Roleplay, Wrath and Glory. I've been working from home throughout the pandemic, and I'm very excited to be back in the office. Today's my second day, and really excited to be part of Gen Con Online as well. The errata on the Wrath and Glory rulebook is out now. I'll give you a link at the end. And I'm very excited to talk to you about what's coming next and for people who are new to it, what to expect from the game. So Wrath and Glory is actually set in the Gilead System, a small collection of diverse Imperial worlds trapped by the Cicatrix Maledictum, by the Great Rift. So it's almost completely surrounded by a warp storm, which is a pretty terrible situation to be in. And that means that they have no contact with the Outer Imperium and no means of escape either. Fortunately, the system is quite diverse, not just in terms of the planets, but in terms of the people that are there defending it from the predations of the aliens and chaos that are in the area. Probably the most striking is that the Vow of Absolution, the battle barge of the Absolvers chapter of Space Marines, was stationed in the Gilead System at the time the Great Rift emerged. Now that means that there is almost an entire chapter of Space Marines ready to battle back chaos, but it's might be enough. We'll see how that works out. What's interesting is that the Absolvers have sworn a vow to defend the Gilead System at any costs, and they are loath to break any vows, so they will be there for a while. Joining them on the first world of Avarkas. Avarkas is the forge world of the system. Closest to the sun, it's actually tidally locked in its rotation with one hot side and one cold side, which means that those two poles are almost unlivable. There would only be a single band around, kind of like the reverse equator of the planet, where people would be able to live. So the Adeptus Mechanicus, in their infinite wisdom, decided to live deep underground in cities that are powered by these eternal engines, ancient pieces of archaeotech that no one really understands, but allow everyone to have power and live deep beneath the surface of the planet. As always, they are closely guarding the secrets of all of their technology, but continuing to mass produce weaponry and armor for the other planets of the system, and creating servitors and Skitari, and also aiding in trying to battle back chaos. But they are running out of resources is the big problem. Any Imperial world is always desperate for resources and relies on the huge interlinking web of the Imperium to get what it needs. Even when the Munitorum and the Administratum don't give the best instructions or make sure the deliveries come on time, people generally get what they need, especially the Adeptus Mechanicus. But in this case, there are no more resources to work with, so they're constantly reusing and recycling and trying to figure out some way to build new things. There are even whispers among some areas that they may turn to tech heresy in an attempt to innovate a way to escape from the Great Rift. I'm sure those are just rumours and won't be the subject of any adventures to come. The Adeptus Mechanicus are, of course, almost a Imperium inside of the Imperium, so used to worshipping their own god, the Omnissiah, and their own practices, that they're allowed to exist as kind of a sub-religion within the Imperium, and are still viewed as somewhat heretical by some of the other elements, even though they're a necessary part of life to maintain the void ships and the weapons and all the machinery that they need. Beyond Avarkas is Netherius, the Night World, a noble planet where the heraldic knights, the feudal knights that live there, pilot giant robotic battle walkers. Every position that they have there is actually hereditary and passed down through the generations, and they are plugged into their thrones from which they pilot these battle walkers, and they download the memories of their descendants to become instantly skilled, honourable warriors, each one of which could turn the tide of battle against an entire army. Of course, they are a bit stuffy, and they're a bit stuck in their ways. They very much believe in honour, but honour to themselves. They're closely linked to the Adeptus Mechanicus, so the citizens of Avarkas are safe, but it's very difficult for anyone else to encourage the Knights of Netherius to leave their world. The third planet from the Gilead Star is Ostia, an Agri world, the surface of which has been given over entirely to the production of crops and the rearing of livestock. The citizens of the planet are still kept in an almost backward state. They believe in a variation of the Emperor that they revere as the Dawn Lord. It's a semi-heretical belief, but the natives are allowed to believe what they want as long as they continue to work the back-breaking labour in the field that the Administratum need to produce food. Of course, since the coming of Cicatrix Maledictum, they've had to work even harder to supply the food for an entire system of planets, whereas previously there would be food coming from other systems and sectors. Now it is just the one planet, Ostia, providing food for everyone. As such, it's become kind of a point of defence and a necessary thing to keep safe and risen in importance. But the peasant farmers who actually live there would know very little of that. They are just forced to work longer and longer hours, and even the Adeptus Mechanicus are trying to broker a deal with the Administratum to create servitor farms that never have to stop working. Rather than relying on human labour, they can just get a servitor to do it for them. Again, I don't think this will turn into an adventure where everything goes wrong, but we'll see. Beyond Ostia is Enoch, the Shrine World. It is a planet that is ruled by the Ecclesiarchy, or the Imperial Cult, the state church of the Imperium, utterly devoted to the worship of the God Emperor of mankind and to the enforcing of his laws, or at least what they have determined them to be. Enoch itself is covered in deserts and oceans, and what little land that there is that is sustainable is covered in churches and cathedrals and statues and other benedictions to the Emperor himself. It was once a site of many pilgrimages, almost like a tourist attraction in the Imperium, where nobles and the devout from other systems and sectors would come to visit in their millions every day. What this meant was that with the coming of Cicatrix Maledictum, all of these people were trapped on this one planet without anything really to sustain them. And as humble pilgrims trapped far away from the Emperor's light, things quickly got ugly. As a planet of the Ecclesiarchy, as Shrine World, the Adeptus Sororitas are in force here, the Sisters of Battle, and have been keeping the peace and making sure that there are no heretical activities. They've also fought in many of the wars to battle back the demons that are constantly assailing the Gilead system, and are widely considered to be beloved by the Imperial citizens. Of course, no Imperial system is complete without a Hive world. The Hive world of Gilead Primus was once the capital world of the system and the most important out of all of them. The many hives that covered its absolutely ravaged surface, each contained over trillions in population, just smushed together in these tiered hive cities. They were responsible for a lot of the production and factory work, and a lot of the population, almost the entire system, actually lived there, up to 10 trillion to a single hive and multiple hives on the planet. And now inside of these hives there was a lot of industry, and indeed very few people who were born there would ever see the sun. Actually just continuously working in these smoggy, awful conditions, constant labour to ensure that the needs of the Imperium were met. As you got up to the higher tiers, there were more nobles and the people who actually were forcing the people below to work for them, who were also responsible for the production of weapons and armour and their fine goods that they would need to survive. Now this planet is less important, although the Lord Governor of the planet, Teleria Philemon, was also responsible for the Imperial Guard in the area, and was key to actually battling back chaos and sending wave after wave after wave of Imperial Guard soldiers to their deaths in the battles. For 3 nightmarish years, the combined forces of the Gilead system fought a bitter losing battle against opportunistic aliens, traitorous renegades, and the demonic forces of the Great Rift itself. And the system would surely have fallen were it not for the arrival of the rogue trader Jack of Veronius. The arrival of Jack of Veronius and his fleet was something of a miracle. He not only brought reinforcements in the form of several ships and the many soldiers that were on them, he brought incredible news that not only did the Imperium still exist beyond the Great Rift, and the Emperor was still leading them, his son, the Primarch Rebute Guliman, had returned from the dead. And that also heralded the arrival of the Primaris Marines, the newest and more powerful version of the Space Marines. Some of which he had brought with him, like stationed on his ship. And he brought many military forces from different places, and that's the opportunity that you have in the game to play any of the Imperial Guard regiments, any of the different types of Sisters of Battle, any of the Space Marine chapters, a tech priest from any Forge world. It's completely conceivable that Rogue Trader Jackal Veronius could have brought them into the system on this madcap, desperate last-ditch attempt to actually get through and help people. And though many people think of him as kind of a saviour of the system, bringing in a load of firepower and like taking control and turning the tide of the many wars, some people don't trust him and don't trust the idea of a Primarch returning. That sounds like kind of crazy. I generally view him with suspicion, though not openly. That would probably be heresy. Despite these reinforcements, the fate of the Gilead system teeters on the edge of a blade. The old rivalries between the Ecclesiarchy and the Adeptus Mechanicus are cast aside in favour of uniting and destroying the common foes of the Chaos and the aliens that have invaded the system. The Inquisition has had to come out into the open and work with other forces. Even the Space Marines have stooped to working with mortals to get the job done. And agents from disparate Imperial factions are brought together in the name of the Emperor, so it wouldn't be surprising to see a Commissar fighting alongside a Space Marine, fighting alongside a Tech Priest, and an Inquisitor, all banding together and using their unique skills to go out and do justice. And that's really the crux of the game, is that you've got this small system of worlds that are all being assaulted by Chaos and the Eldari and Orcs, and you have every different type of Imperial faction in there as well, and you have the freedom to play any of them. You can play as Adeptus Mechanicus, you can play as Astra Militarum, you can play as a Space Marine, you can even play as an Orc or an Eldari or a Agent of Chaos if you wanted to. You've got a lot more freedom in the kind of characters that you want to play. And this allows you to build diverse groups and kind of tell whatever story that you want to tell based on like your favourite parts of Warhammer 40,000. I wanted to take you through the mechanics of Wrath and Glory. It's a really easy system to learn and very easy to play. It's going to be very familiar to you if you're a fan of Warhammer 40,000, the battle game. But I wanted to address some of the differences between the old D100 systems like Dark Heresy and Rogue Trader, and just show off what's unique about Wrath and Glory and why you should play it. So what we've got here is a wonderful Warhammer Fantasy roleplay dice tray and some D6s, which are all you need to play the game. So Wrath and Glory is played with a D6 dice pool system that's easy to pick up for newcomers and will feel very familiar to players of Warhammer 40,000. Whenever your character tries to do something and the outcome is unclear or uncertain, you just need to make a test. That's pretty much the core mechanic of the game and solves basically everything you need to know. A test uses a number of dice to resolve random factors. So it's your attributes and your skills determine the number of six-sided dice that you roll. I'll just show you as an example here of the character sheet. You can see that the attributes up here and the skills are down here. And for something like athletics, you would add together your strength and your athletics rating to get the total of 5. So the GM will usually ask you for a specific skill that they will be testing, such as Athletics S, to jump across a gap. Say you're chasing a heretic over a cathedral roof and they jump off and leap onto the roof of a nearby manufactorum. If you wanted to make that same leap, the GM might ask you to perform a athletics strength test. So all you would do was you'd grab your character sheet and take a look at the athletics strength column here. So your strength is 3 and your athletics rating is 2 for a total of 5. So all you do is you roll the 5 dice, the number that's associated with your skill. Every dice that you roll that lands on a 4 or a 5 counts as 1 icon. Every dice that you roll that lands on a 6 counts as 2 icons. It's sometimes called an exalted icon. Every dice that you roll that lands on a 1, a 2 or a 3, you can just ignore. They're failures. So all you need to do is count up your total number of icons and then compare that to the difficulty number of the test that your GM gave you. If you've got equal to the difficulty number or more icons, then you've passed. And if not, then you've failed. I'm sorry. The Game Master will usually tell you the difficulty number or DN of a test. So more difficult things have a higher difficulty number. So if you were just jumping across a small gap between the two buildings, your difficulty number might be 3, which I would have passed here with my one icon, and another 2 icons. But if I was wanting to jump from, say, a flying aircraft and land safely on the ground, I might need to make a much higher DN test, like a 5, which I wouldn't be able to achieve with what I've rolled here. That's the basics of the game, and it's all you really need to know how to play. You can see that if you have a higher skill or an attribute, you'll be rolling more dice, which means you have a greater chance to succeed. One of the unique currencies in Wrath and Glory are the Wrath points. Now you earn Wrath points through good role-playing, and you also start every game with a couple of Wrath points. You can spend your personal points of Wrath to influence the outcomes of tests and change the world itself in your favour. So if you failed a test that you really need to succeed on, like I have here, I've rolled a lot of 1s and 2s and 3s. What I could do was I could spend a point of Wrath, and then I could take all the 1s and 2s and 3s and re-roll them, hopefully getting a better result. You can also spend a point of Wrath to make a narrative declaration. So essentially, if you're maybe in a Voidcraft Bay and a bunch of orcs come over and attack you, you could say, is that a barrel of promethium over there that I could shoot that would explode all of the orcs? And you would spend a point of Wrath and then just add that into the game. Just change something about the narrative, whatever you want. As long as the GM agrees to it, you can be telling the story together. Your supply of Wrath dice is unique to you, and everyone at the table will have their own supply of Wrath. But glory points are shared between every single player. Now, what you can do with glory is you can spend it before you make a test to add a bonus dice. So say if I was only rolling 2 measly dice on a test and I really wanted to succeed, what I might do is I might ask the group if I could spend maybe 3 points of glory so that I was rolling a more respectable 5 dice. You can also spend your glory in combat. After you've hit someone, you can spend a glory to increase the amount of damage that you've done. You can also spend a glory to seize the initiative and make sure you go first before your opponent. And finally, you can spend glory when you achieve a critical hit to make sure that it is appropriately gory and you get the result that you want. So one of the projects for Wrath and Glory that I'm very excited about is the Forsaken Systems Player Guide. So basically it's giving you a little bit more ground level information about the Gilead system where Wrath and Glory is set, and what it's like to live and exist in the Imperium, as well as just some bonus things to help you play the game. So the first key part of the book is the backgrounds. Now this is going to be very useful to players and GMs alike. What it is it gives you more of the details of what life is like on each of the planets. So if you wanted to know how your tech priest grew up on Avarkas, the kind of things that they studied, the kind of things that they went through, where did they live, what did their parents do, all of that kind of crucial information is all in the background section of this book. Each one is tailored to a planet, so if you want to know more about Forge World life or Agri World life, this will give you a strong impression on how to build a character from that place and the kind of life that they've lived. The second thing that I think is really exciting is the factions. So this kind of builds on that first chapter, but has a lot more information about the different factions that are at play in the Gilead system. Again, if you wanted to know more about the Adeptus Mechanicus or the Adeptus Astartes or the anyone really, it gives you a bit more of in-depth on how to play them and the kind of things that they are looking for, their goals, the set of strictures that they live by, the hierarchy of their organisation, all the basic stuff that you would need to roleplay those kind of characters, just in more depth and presented in a way that's easy to absorb. There are also a whole bunch of new patrons. If you have the Wrath and Glory rulebook, you'll know that Jackal Veronius and Teleria Philemon are actually in the book as patrons, as people that could give you missions or a framework to work to. We're adding a load more of these into the Forsaken System Player's Guide. So if there's someone that you particularly want to work for, or a type of game that you want to play, if you see a framework that you like and you want to run with it, then they're all in there. There should be some weird and wonderful ones in there too. We also have a very exciting set of 20 new archetypes. So what comes with those is there are 3 new playable species: the Ratlings, the Ogrins, and the Kroot. Each one of those has their own archetypes, and there are archetypes for the other factions as well. So if you're thinking about changing archetype or starting up a new game and you want to play something a bit different, there's loads and loads of opportunities to do that in there. And finally, we're adding in a Endeavours system, similar to what you might know from Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. It lets you kind of continue a game at and after the table. You can just keep going with it then, and you can know what your character is doing when they're not out adventuring. It really adds to the storytelling of the game. It means that your character isn't just someone who goes out and fights things or solves mysteries. They also have a life beyond that. They can pursue kind of bigger goals and more of a life. But that's everything for Forsaken System. The Wrath and Glory rulebook is available for pre-order from Cubicle7games.com and from your local game store. All orders on our website include a PDF, so you can get started right away. You might also want to check out our C7 blog, which is on our website, and on our social media places, our sushi media places. We're on Twitter as @Cubicle7, on Facebook at Cubicle7 Entertainment, on Instagram at Cubicle7, and we also have our own newsletter that you can sign up to on our website, so you don't miss out on any of the news that's coming forward.